Hi, everybody, and welcome to our live stream. Sorry, we're a couple of minutes late, usual last minute rush, but also moderate technical hitch in, yeah, anyway. Hi, everybody. No, oh my gosh. Our live stream. Sorry. Anyway, here we are. And hope you're all okay. It's been a busy week here, as always, on the clocks front. Our Facebook page has been doing well. We've got some interesting, we've had an interesting question for somebody who's got a clock that has no pallets. You may have seen it if you're on Facebook. If you've not seen our Facebook page, then please sign up. Everybody's welcome. Anyway, that clock that has no pallets, we've worked through a few sort of ideas there. And what I thought I would do, because it's quite a cool sort of challenge that people might come across, is to run through that on Saturday on the Open Clock Club thing. And also that clock has no pendulum. So how do you go about doing a train count? We do talk about train counts in our book up there, but it's always useful to do a bit of maths. And those of you that know my maths will realize I need all the practice I can get. So yeah, back to our how to repair pendulum clocks team. Live chat is in another meeting, working at the moment. So you will have to entertain yourselves in a live chat, but please say hello to one another. I guess you're getting to know each other quite well. Although we have had a lot of people join the Facebook group and made a few book sales. So hopefully there's some completely new people out there. So very, very quick recap for those people who are new. My name is Matthew Reed, and we run this thing called How to Repair Pendulum Clocks. And we thought a few weeks ago we would do a live stream. So maybe it was about 2 months ago now, actually. I forget which number this is. The old ones are all archived on YouTube, and some people do actually go back through and look at them all. Gosh, that must be some punishment, but there you go. And the first and probably last patient that we've got on the live stream is an early 19th century European English long case clock, 8-day duration long case clock, which we've been through a bit of an assessment. We've done a bit of preliminary cleaning. We have made a new spring for one of the ratchet clicks. I think it was the striking side, if I remember correctly. Yeah, it was the striking side. And now we're on to this little challenge here, which we started last week, which is the rack spring. So get the pointer stick. 3/4 of this whole event is looking for tools, of course, although I have had a bit of a tidy up since last week. So for those of you that didn't see it, this is the foot of our rack spring, and I put some images on Facebook so you can see that. And what's happened is at some point, you might not be able to see very well on the resolution here, but on YouTube. But the spring actually quite unusually, well, maybe not unusually, but came out to the side here. You can see these marks. I'm not particularly convinced about these marks because the spring that was on, if you didn't see it, was a later thing that was soft soldered to the upper surface of the foot, which last week we got a bit of heat on it and we took it off, and it'll curve around here and go up and activate, cause our rack to fall when the clock's striking. Now, there was a great bit of advice last week from one of our live streamers that said, try use a bit of alum to rust out this screw. So I did a little bit of research, and I think that's a really good idea Just maybe you can see a bit better on the back there. There's some focus or not. You can see that there's the screw. I'd kind of hoped it would rotate out with a bit of a punch, but unfortunately it's been riveted over or something, so I'm going to have to drill it out. I think the alum thing would be really good. Of course, I haven't gotten around to getting any or trying it, but according to the online forums and things, it's a really nice idea where you've got a steel component in a aluminium or brass component like this. You can actually corrode it out. Anyway, so that's really going to be my sort of first job there. But let's just, while I'm thinking about that, because it's always going to be a bit tricky to drill that small component, but let's just think about what that rack spring is going to have to do. If you repaired this kind of clock, sort of long case or tall case clocks, then this is one of those incredibly common repairs. The rack spring has often been replaced. And when you buy them off the peg, you can buy a thing that's got the foot and everything already there. The problem with those is they tend to be too strong. And I said this last week, so barely needs repeating. But the problem with the spring being too strong is that the clock has got more work to do when it's gathering up the rack, which is going to exacerbate wear on the gathering pallet. But also, it means that when the rack falls, it does so with a big clunk, which can eventually break the rivet between the rack and the rack arm, which we want to avoid. So with springs on clocks, very broadly, all springs on clocks, in fact, you just want that to be enough, sort of enough to be safe to operate, whether that was the star wheel and jumper, or whether that's a mainspring. You only need it to be enough to work, and then a little bit for a margin of safety. So we're going to get around that by making our new spring tapered, and we can file it down and file it down and file it down until it feels just the right kind of springiness. And then if it's too thin, we'll have to take it off and do it again. And we're going to solder it back on the top of here. So this foot is perfectly serviceable. It looks a bit untidy at the moment, and it may look a bit untidy when it's finished. But there's nothing wrong with it. You can see it's probably original to the clock. It's kind of a flat piece of material that curves round. So rather than having a separate driven in steel or iron steady pin, it's got a brass steady pin. Just curls along at the side there. Okay. Right. So let's just find the other components, which would help. Always a worry when you only work on a clock once a week for an hour or something, that the other parts have disappeared. So there you go. There's our rack, and it appears in really good condition. So it's got a little bit of surface rust, but that's nothing to worry about. What's important is that the rivet that I talked about here doesn't appear to have ever been broken. So I did a video, and it's on the other YouTube channel. Again, another common repair on these clocks is when this component, the rack arm, has been damaged or broken and either replaced or bent and moved to a new position. But I won't kind of repeat the whole thing because it's on the video, but there's obviously a relationship between the height of the steps on the snail, which are usually even but not always, and the distance between the rack pin, which is on the back here, and the pivot point, and the effective radius of the rack, which is somewhere up here near the tips of the teeth, and the pitch of the teeth. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 factors in that equation, if you like, and you can kind of figure out that these relationships have to be proportional. Otherwise, the thing won't always strike reliably because the rack will fall a different amount. Anyway, that's a great exercise, actually, if you've never done that, just to look at a clock with rack striking and figure out what those 4 relationships are. But anyway, we need that. and we need the post on which the rack fits. So it's one of these. I think there's wrapping of parts 4 on this clock. Look. This one is the minute wheel stud, which you may remember if you've been with us before, is cracked at the side, so we need to solder that at some point. Put that back in there. And then we've got 3. So there's rack, stud, rack hook, and another one, he says. What we've got? We've got rack hook, rack stud, and lifting piece as well. Yeah, got there eventually. So these are all tapered, so they're made to a brooch type taper, and so we can see that one is too tight. Not that one. That one is too short. It's like mummy bear, daddy bear, and baby bear, whatever the thing was. And that one's also too short, so it's none of those. That's not, can't be right, can it? Must be this first one. Yeah, there we are. I was just not framing myself. So with all components, it's just worth checking. You do occasionally find a rack pipe that's worn to the degree that the striking becomes unreliable. And what I've done there is to bush both ends rather than putting a sleeve the whole way through, which you could do a tapered sleeve. What I've done is to open up here on the back a little bit and insert a bush, and open on the front a bit and insert a bush as well, which won't last quite as long as it did originally with a long sleeve. But I imagine that most of the kind of wear is at the ends anyway. So it is possible to rebush the rack. Oh, here's Team Open Clock Club. So you live chatters will be rescued from yourselves in a minute. Anyway, so yeah, usual thing with any clock component, you need side shake, and you can just see that there, a little bit of wobble, and you need end shake. So there's a pin run through that hole there, and you can just see there's a tiny bit of clearance. So all good. It's a bit, that's why I thought it was problematic in the first place. It's a bit tight going through the end of the hole. So I wonder whether it's either a bit of rust on the end, or it's the fact that it's gotten burred. If you just see it there in the light, you can just see it's got a bit lumpy where somebody's pushed a pin in. So in fact, before I go ahead, that counts as a little repair. So we're all about small gains here. So let's just tap that down. Little watchmaker's hammer, and we'll just do it on this side really so you can see, but can't really hold it like that. Just gently. I remember where I did this before, but it seems like a long time ago now. But we did a similar thing with the winding squares on a barrel arbor. Again, tap down the metal rather than filing off, because obviously once you've filed off material, you've had it because you can't put it back. So let's just try that. It's still a bit tight. It's better. It should be completely loose. And the reason I'm kind of concerned about that is not actually for this case, but particularly with things like French clocks. If you have a stud on the rack or other components I can't quite think of at the moment, those things can hang up ever so easily. You might think it's okay, you push the rack on and not think twice about it. But if it's a bit tight and the rack moves forward, remember this is a tapered component, so its tendency is for it to move in this direction. So you might have the clock on test for a couple of weeks and it's working, but as the rack works its way forward, and I can feel it is ever so tight at the front there, it'll fail to drop maybe, cause you a problem. Same, yeah, for the lifting piece on a French clock. It's amazing how I'm with plenty stories of sort of near misses, but amazing how those tiny things, and of course they can tend to be sort of not exactly cumulative, but it's just good to get them out of the way, and then it's not in the back of your mind that the thing's going to stop. We want to, back to my rant about test stands, try not to mention test stands tonight. When you put the clock together, from my perspective anyway, and it's different for different people, of course, because we're all in this for, I'm just in it for the money, obviously. We're all in it for different reasons. Is that I just want it to run. You know, I want to put the pendulum on, wind it up. And of course, that doesn't always happen. There are little things that you've got to tweak. But essentially, my sort of will is that it's going to run. I don't anticipate having to take it apart again and all that kind of stuff. So things like this, as kind of trivial as it seems, are important to making sure that things actually run. And touch wood, we've had a good track record recently of long case clocks that have just gone up on the wall, tested them for a couple of weeks, taken them back to clients, and you don't hear anything. And I presume you would hear something if, sorry, get my hand out the way.
I don't, it says, is the pin supposed to be bent?
Which pin?
It says, is the pin supposed to be bent?
The pin, it's a 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 pin. I don't know. This thing you mean on the back of that? Or the pin? I don't know. Which pin? Oh, this, the rack arm. Because that's bent, I noticed. That's not supposed to be bent, if that's what you mean.
Clarified on the rack.
Oh, I've lost my super special new pliers. Oh, that pin. Good, well spotted, Derek. You've got eyes. Good eyesight. No, I think it's is it also a taper pin as well? No, it's not. I don't know whether that's bent because if you remember, this thing has got the craziest, longest gathering pallet, which I'm desperately putting off even looking at, never mind working on. Anyway, and so it may be related to that. There was a bit of an idea that the gathering pallet might be later, although I don't think it is. Is the pin meant to be bent? Let's have a wee look. No, it's a taper pin. So that's later anyway. Although it looks in good nick, it just has got bent round. It might be. It might have been bent because the gathering pallet's been shortened or something. Or it may be that sometimes as the components wear, somebody, I think it was Ian, was it last week or this week? Last week maybe, had a problem with this component, in fact. So it's quite, we're getting used to the camera being at the different side. Quite sort of timely that I think there was some wear on the rack pin to the degree that a little flat had formed, and it was just maybe not all the time, I can't remember, Ian, preventing the rack from dropping. And the opposite can happen as well. It can get worn, so when the gathering pallet comes round and rotates and hits or lands on this pin here, that it's actually so worn it jumps back out of engagement and doesn't actually lock at the end. So maybe that was happening and they bent it in, but we will no doubt figure that out when and if we ever get round to, or we will get round to it, that part of the process. Now I can't find my lovely brass lined parallel pliers that I love so much. So I'm back to the adjustable spanner. Should really make a little brass spanner, but of course it'll take half a lifetime. Oh dear. Looks like it's a stolen spanner as well. I don't think it's actually stolen spanner. I bought this from the YMCA in Barnard Castle If RH Davidson, if you're out there, then I've got your spanner. I'll stick it in the post. Yeah, I used to live right next door to the famous spec service in Bannock Castle, who who visited or didn't visit or whatever happened.
Ian says that's right. It was intermittent.
Intermittent, yeah. Yeah, that's such a great, without putting off actually fixing this clock even more, that's such a great lesson that I think if you're a beginner here, it's so easy to try and convince yourself that the problem, if it works fine once when you've got the clock on test or when you're going through the repairs like this, it won't occur again. But it does. Intermittent problems are a real problem by the very nature of them, because inevitably, I suppose it's the same in cars and things. Customer takes the car into the garage and inevitably it doesn't make the noise, or it doesn't do whatever it was doing when it's in the garage, but it does on the way home. So let's just check that that is now completely free. Yeah, it seems good there. So we're all good. So anyway, what we need is a spring that goes from this point here down. Now I think I looked last week for any witness marks down here. Ideally, I'd make this as long as possible, because that's going to give the spring its maximum sort of flexibility. So it's got that nice lazy but useful action. If it's short, there again, part of my brain is also saying should really follow those marks that were there, Matthew, and so on. So let's just have another little look at. It's really tricky to see. I mean, there are marks there. We'll measure it, and camera's going to focus, maybe not, slowly. And look at the kind of overall length of the spring that we're going to need. So it's, remember, there's a bit that folds round at the end as well. So we've got about 5 centimeters there. And let's say, for sake of argument, we've got a centimeter at this end, and we've got another centimeter to allow for bending the end round and cutting it off. So that's 5, 6, 7. So we want a piece of wire that's about 8 centimeters long, something like that. I'll just write that down. Break the habit of a lifetime. On the eye of the pencil. Right. Looking out for the parallel jaw pliers now. Serves me right for not putting them back in the drawer. I was working on a push bike. Maybe they were with that stuff. Right, so there we are. That's all good. So 8 centimeters. We know what we're doing. There's no need to make a drawing of this component. What I'll do is I will, without hopefully scratching the plate, I'll just make up a much longer sort of taper, and we know we know exactly how wide the foot of that spring is, because we can see the little bit that's kind of broken off. So I'll just get I can probably do it with a ruler actually. It's amazing sort of how close you can see with a steel rule. It's about 3/4 of a mil.
It says, what's wrong with following the marks but making it a bit longer?
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. That's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to err on the side of it being longer to give it that kind of nice action that we're after. So yeah, I'm going to respect the marks, but when it comes to bending it round at the end and then soldering it on, it's going to, I mean, the marks are not exact, but those, as we said before, those witness marks can be incredibly useful. So yeah, I'll just kind of use them as a guide and leave it on the long side. So I think I will actually just get the caliper, because I'm looking for distractions. So I'm getting the screw out and just measure it, but it's about 0.8 of a millimeter by the look of it. Oh, well, it just shows how wrong you can be. It's about 1.2 millimeters, so it's quite a bit wider than I estimated, so good job of measuring it. So again, I should actually write that down as well. Oh, okay. Let's go away. Just think about getting this stood out. So I don't know whether it's best to drill from the front or the back. I guess in terms of if I happen to slip with the drill, or I haven't thought I'm going to drill it yet, maybe with the old Archimedean drill, which will take a good long time. It'll be better on the back because it won't be seen, but it'll still be known, even if it isn't seen per se. So it's actually easier to hold it down like this, of course, because there's, or what is it? Oh yeah, there's that old bushing, isn't there? The warning wheel bushing that we've still got to deal with yet. Many things. Anyway, so I'm just going to put a little center punch in that and then drill it. And then when it's, if I can drill through the hole, then I'll be able to maybe put a brooch in it, tap a brooch in, and then hopefully turn it out. Otherwise, I'll have to get a needle file and file it out. Right. Much ferreting about. Finding one with an actual point on, of course, is a challenge. I do have a little thing we looked at this for, a carbide, one with a carbide tip, which I sharpened up on one of the diamond stones. But the problem with using that as a center punch is it tends to fracture the tip. So it's a kind of scriber, really. It's really useful, that. And these others, when we're like a tool talk, these others are the ones that we used to make at college. It's one of the first jobs a student did, with a bit of silver steel, which is a nice turning and then hardening and tempering process. And the rest of them I just, like always, picked up along the way. Yeah. And that's, as I said before, a bicycle pedal axle. Cool. A brass hammer. Just going to. So when you center punch, don't go bonkers with the first tap. Just if the center punch is sharp, which this isn't in particular, could have a little sharpen up actually. We love a sharpen up. Then if your punch mark isn't quite where you want it to be, what you can do then is rescue it by moving it across, by angling the punch and kind of tapping it across, and then you can go for it. Oh, it's this sharpening again. Sorry, my hand, and maybe I should put the camera on the other side actually, then be better for a right-handed person, wouldn't it? Yeah, I'll try that. So just rotating kind of with my left hand. Yeah, that would make a whole lot of sense. I'll try the camera on the other side next week. So rotating and drawing the thing towards me like that to sharpen the tip on my ceramic whetstone, which you'll all be very familiar with nowadays. It's had its more than its fair share of screen time, that's for sure. I should speed up really and stop talking and actually try and get it done. It'd be nice to get it done today. Right. Okay. So, surprisingly, my mark is actually pretty good. But just to demonstrate that, yeah, you as a beginner, maybe it's very tempting to get the center punch and whack it. Or personally, I'm not a major fan of those spring-loaded ones. I think again, Ian on the Facebook page showed one with a little plunger on the end that you can pull up to get a nice light tap, and that's what you want, light taps. So little light tap, check it, and then if that's a problem, you can angle the punch and tap it across, which enables you to center the mark. Whereas if you hit it hard in the first place, then you've had it because there's a kind of great big divot there. But I think we're good. Ish. We'll actually just move it across a little bit. And again, when we start drilling, we can also just, once the drill's kind of, got to the height or the depth of the point, you can angle the drill across a little bit, drill in a little bit more, and then sort of steer it as you go, which is incredibly useful. So, not sure it's particularly well supported underneath, but nevertheless. Well. Interestingly, that it started to move it through. So I'm actually going to try and punch it out. Maybe because I remember last week I was trying to punch it from the back through on the basis that this side's had the head on it. So I presume this would be bigger, but it's actually moved down by, I don't know, 1/4 millimeter or something. So I'm actually just going to try and encourage it to go through. That might save me the embarrassment of trying to drill it out. So we'll just get a cork block, which is a slightly nicer way of supporting it underneath. And well, bit of a shame that we're losing quite a lot of precious dirt off the clock frame there, which is slightly distressing. And also some blue paint from, I don't know where that was from. I would like to say it was some ancient blue car that I had that I rubbed down, but I don't think I've ever owned a blue car, have I? Anyway, so that's good. It's nearly through. So we're down to the most frustrating tool on the planet, the staking set. We can't go a week without looking at the staking set. So it wouldn't be Thursday night, would it, without me complaining about that? So I'll just go find it and see if we can punch it through. All right, how are you?
Good.
Thank you for doing that. Funny that the other lot, Harriet's lot of pencils fell out as well on the floor across there.
Pencils on the move.
Pencils on the move. Is that an avalanche of pencils? If you heard that, right? Okay. Some tweezers. Somehow managed to lose my brass tweezers. I think I probably left them inside the belly of the Buzz Swan automaton, like one of those, those operations that you used to read about in the Sunday papers where somebody found a pair of forceps inside them. Shouldn't laugh. Joke. Right. Okay. Look, maybe you need a bigger hammer. Hey, there we are. So an amount of time since anybody saw the underneath of that foot there. That's quite cute, isn't it? This nice turned over end. So all good. And it doesn't appear to be a screw, just appears to be a pin. So kind of quite relieved now that I didn't try and punch it out. Let's just put that back in there. So there you go. You see that? It appears to be just a pin. Whether it's always been a pin, in which case, then how is that held on? Is it just pinned on? Like, you know, we did with the spring, with the ratchet click spring. It might just be like that. There's no reason why not. That's a perfectly good way of fixing it to the frame. It doesn't need to be sort of mechanically sort of riveted or anything. Or maybe it was riveted. But anyway, let's get this out and have a little bit of a look at it. And again, I'm mourning the very premature departure of my my parallel jaw pliers, because they'd be really good for this. Anyway, tomorrow is, we know what tomorrow is, Tidy Friday. And if you believe that, you believe anything. There's, I don't know whether any of you are into podcasts. I've never listened to one, but I should probably start. But I've been asked to take part in a podcast called The C Word, as in conservation, which I've heard a lot about over the years, but never listened to it. And but anyway, they rang me up and said, would I take part? So the answer is I'm going to do that tomorrow. So that'll be cool. Pig's ear of this. Expectedly, not unexpectedly. Let's just got that little chat there. So yeah, recording a podcast tomorrow, and we've got book club, and we've got a practice for our icon event, which is on Monday. So if you haven't booked onto that yet, please do if you've got the time. Monday, 10th of May at 6 o'clock. We've got 4 West Dean alumni, and we've got Fyodor, who works at Historic Royal Palaces. So it'll be cool to hear what he's got to say. Daniela, who works at the National Maritime Museum. Ken, who's self-employed down in Suffolk, and then Dale, who's also self-employed in West Sussex. So they're really cool. And hopefully there'll be a few of the panelists from last time as well. So Jonathan and Francoise, to kind of keep, a bit like we do here, to keep the thing moving, so we can have common themes rather than starting every time and probably, yeah, quite loose, but probably also got quite riveted over now with me whacking it. Just not very sympathetic. Right, maybe Team Open Cloud Club will put a link in. Thank you. It's great. If you haven't signed up for that, it's free to attend. We've had to change the format in fact. Oh, there we are. It's out. Right, done. Don't move the orientation of it, Reed. Okay.
Jane calls Tidy Friday Poets Day.
All right, Poets Day.
Poet, meaning piss off early tomorrow, Saturday.
All right, okay. Yes. Again, talking about the college, Friday was always Tidy Friday, but I realized that you can't do Tidy Friday at sort of 3 o'clock because you get that exactly that thing, Jane. Everybody says, can I do it on Monday? Can I leave early? Can somebody else do it? And the answer to those things is no, no, and no. So what you have to do is do it first thing on Friday, and then it immediately gets untidy again. But that's fine. I think it's a while since I've had a Tidy Friday here. So camera might not focus on it, but there we are. It's just a pin in from the outside. So it kind of makes me think that it might have just been pinned on. Unless there's any evidence of a thread, just have a little look inside the hole. No. No, none. Great. Oh gosh, I'm very excited about that. Partly because I don't have to think about making a screw like we have to do with our pendulum, but just pinned on from the outside, it appears, unless you've got any other ideas out there. Massing quite a lot of tools here already. Staking set away. Staking set away. Good. Right. So I think it's maybe time to get making this bit of wire spring. I don't know whether to bring, I might try and move the camera onto the vise so you can see the filing for that. So let's just get some brass wire. Yeah, it's kind of all changed here because, of course, with us doing the Clock Club on Saturday, the weekends are really kind of busy with horology stuff as well. So there's a continuum, which I really like. Don't mind that one bit. So we're after we could flatten the end a bit of the wire, so it maybe doesn't have to be 1.2, because where it's going to get soldered on, we could actually just forge that down a little bit. And that'll save me a bit of filing as well. Not that it's going to be a massive job, but it's finding a bit that's long enough, of course. So there's a piece which is a bit mutilated already, but that doesn't matter because we're going to have to taper it anyhow.
Derek says,
yeah,
that you said it had been dressed over, so that points to it being a pin.
Yeah. Yeah, I presumed what had happened was it had been a screw and the head had broken off, so somebody had thought, oh well, I'll just rivet it in place. But you're right, and actually when I thought about it a bit more, the diameter of that was really quite tiny, even for a screw to hold that component on. So yeah, I should have maybe known that. In fact, I will know in future that they are sometimes pinned on. I've seen them when they've been bits of, oh, that might work. Is it going to be long enough? Yeah, just, I said 8 centimeters, didn't I? So not bad. I'd rather have a longer bit, then I don't have to turn it round in the vise, but that would do all right. Let's just, unless I've lost it, I know there's the foot. Let's just have a look at what that's actually going to look like. Yeah, I think that's the first bit of wire I saw, and it's 8 centimeters long. So can't really argue with that, can you? And it's 1.4 something at this end. So it'll need just taking down a little bit, but that's no big deal. The end's been kind of just cut off with a pair of, I don't know what's happened to it, but anyway, that's fine. We can deal with that. So it's just, we'll sanity check it, which is always useful, isn't it? So yeah, that's the thing. I think we're good to go. So I'm just going to file it. This is already hard, this wire, but I think before we file it down, I mean, you can see it's quite springy. Just going to work harden it a little bit more, which won't take long. Might even just do it with a brass hammer. Really doing the job, that hammer. We need a steel one. Nice, this White House Atlas, this hammer. Really lovely, which is different from Nine of Hammers, the one I was using before, which is a Swiss sort of watchmaker one. The White House one, just a little bit bigger. Not enough watchmakers hammers, that's the problem. It's rotating the work and tapping away. You probably can't hear, you'll be able to hear me hammering it, but the tone, you can hear it getting higher and higher as the work gets harder and harder. That is on it. It's probably been used to mix araldite or something. Right, okay, so super nice and springy now. We can start to file it. We'll just attempt, not sure how successful it is, but to move the camera to the vise rather than bringing the little vise across here, because it'll just tend to slip about, I think. So bear with me while I do that. One day we will have vice cam and we'll have a little switching thing and all that stuff, but one step at a time with the technology. Maybe I should stop the share. Oh. No. Oh, well, maybe not. That is not going to work, unfortunately. Nice idea. And my lovely shots got messed up and the camera's on an angle. Not to worry. We will go down this route instead. Won't be quite as convenient, but it'll be a bit more photogenic. Let's just move this. So boxwood. Just tip that up a bit. So what's that? Oh, it's the microphone that's in the way. Boxwood filing block. It's really a useful thing. I have to pin this down or just file a bit more easily, which will be challenging. Might be all right. There we are. So that just rests in that little groove. And we put the file where the work is. So just find a pin vise. That might do it. Yeah, that would help actually. I'm going to try that during the week. Oh, that's good. This is kind of again tool time. This pin vise has got very lightweight handle. I don't know whether it's Bakelite or something. Yeah, it looks like no, maybe it's wood. Maybe it's wood. Anyway, so there we've got our bit of brass wire hardened in our vise, and we can start to file it if we can find a file. Like of all the files I've got like the world's worst file of the edges being ground off on a hand grinder. But if you look, you can just see that it's being ground at some crazy angle, presumably to make some kind of clearance. But anyway, it should do the job. Let's just check I've got the right end, correct end. Yeah, there we go. So we're just going to go for that nice kind of casual taper, and then we'll keep trying it and sort of going like this to check. But the point is, just put it in there. Hey. Thanks. The point is that when we've got our spring, if we deflect it at this end, look where it bends. It's basically only bending here. And if we were to be brutal and continue to bend it, it would just bend here. What we're after is it bending nice and gradually along its length. So I'll be doing lots of this. It still feels a bit soft at this end. I wonder whether it had been heated up, which is why it was that funny color. Maybe it had been annealed, but anyway. So you can see that there's material to come off here. Probably making all sorts of grim, scrapey noises. I want it actually to be quite thin at the end. Oh, this vise is working well. I thought it would slip all over the place, but it's doing all right. Good thing again about the boxwood like this, I don't know if you can see that on the camera, but it's actually acting as a bit of a guide, because as I tip the file up, that is preventing it. You can see it's not filing here, it's loose. So I can just angle it and feel the thing bite. So it just gives you a bit more control than just kind of filing it on a flat surface. Let's move that a bit closer that way. I'm going to focus. Yeah, great. Also want to go for a different file now. Border this one. Can't remember how much is not a lot at the end. Might be able to do it all in one run actually, because it's we don't need quite the whole length of this. So rotating the work towards me as I file in this direction. I'm going to, as you can see already, it's got quite a lot of lumps in it, but I'm not worrying about that yet, because what I'll do is draw file it when we've got it, you know, in the ballpark. Once we've got most of the meat off, I'll progress to a finer cut file. Right, let's give it a little test. So you can see that the point of flexure, is moving along. It's not quite as focused as it was, but it's bending kind of in this area now, but it's not bending at the end. The end still remaining quite straight, so need to work on this end more. But it's already gone down, what was it, 1.4? It's gone down to half now. Look, it's down to 0.7. So it's kind of getting there. I'm going to move to a finer file. This one is, oh, I don't know, might be 2 cut or the equivalent of. It's a bit of an animal, but right. And this one is pretty worn out. Might actually be 6 cut by the look of it, but this is much nicer. It's one I've used for one of my file videos. Sometimes they've got the number on them, but the number on this case is inside the tang. Anyway, so wider file, so actually better for the job, and you can hear straight away. Yeah, that's incredibly useful, that little sticky up bit there, because if I want to then take the height down a bit, I can just file that down as well. It's obviously being filed down as we go along. It'll start to vibrate a bit because it's getting quite thin. It starts to vibrate, then just change the angle of the file so you don't get that same kind of interference pattern. So let's just have another look. Yeah, again, there's not much going on here. It wants to be thinner in that bit there, so not at the end. The end's getting quite thin now. Oh. Nice, it's getting there, isn't it? Maybe just a bit more here, and then we're about there. So that's what I was after, you know, that nice, that sort of gradual curve. So just going to do a bit more here, and then maybe a bit more there, but I don't want to overcook it because it's getting down to size, and when we draw file it, that's going to take it down a little bit more as well. Have a little measure up at the end. So we're down to about 0.6 now. Actually 0.5 at the end, tapering up to 1.4, obviously at the foot still. So I think we'll call that a day, and maybe a little bit more there in the middle. It's always easy to keep going and make it too thin. Right, let's get rid of that and look for our core block. Hiding under there.
Derek says, is it supposed to be round? He thought it would have been flat.
It might have been flat originally. Some of them are. They're yeah, some are flat. I don't know. I mean, all I can see is a tiny bit that's left is maybe radius on top. You know, sometimes you get that, you get them flat at the base and then radius on top. Obviously, the foot has to have a flat filed on it to solder down onto the little bit of existing material that we've got, if I've still got it. But that's a good point. Unfortunately, on this clock, of course, there are no others. Normally, on like a spring clock or something, you might have 2 or 3 springs, like trip repeating or something that you could look at and sort of get a sort of an idea of a guide. But yeah, it's a good point. Actually, it could well have been more flat, but I think the bit that I can see, and of course now I'm worried that they've actually lost the little piece that we're going to solder it onto, is probably flat at the back and sort of radiused on top. So it's a good point. It's a good point. Those little cast ones that you get on spring clocks, certainly they're often flat. I suppose they have to be, really, because presumably they're made out of a cast piece of material, then they're bent round. So just draw file it a bit, which again will help with the work hardening, and it will also help with evening it out. So just move it a bit. There we are, into the frame. Yeah, happy with that. So I'll just draw file the other end. And then we've got to think about, can't be far, can it, as this saying goes. Got to think about how I'm going to fix it on. So solder it on, but just going to obviously have to clean up the foot a little bit. Oops, pin vise is probably not going to want to grip that. Clean up the little foot a bit to so we can solder to it as well. There you go. So that'll do for now. There's our new spring. It's got a little bit of a lump in it there, but we'll worry about that later. And yeah, so that's the kind of look I was after, like a fishing rod. Okay, so now I wanted to panic and look for the bit of metal that I've lost. There it is.
So it says under the vise.
Yeah.
Is that where it is?
Yeah, got it. Thank you.
Oh,
I got. Don't know where my sunglasses are, do you, Derek? I lost them in 1984, but you probably know where they are as well. That's really good. My uncle, who used to come into my workshop when I had like a proper workshop in Selby, just down the road. Within about 4 minutes, he knew where everything was, and I just said to him, "Where's that thing?" And he said, "Oh, it's across there." Very observant, which is, you can tell I'm not. So that's going to go on there. There's no way around this being a repair. I'm pretty happy with that, and that's what it is. So I'm just going to flatten the foot a little bit on the inside, just so we can solder it down. So I'm just wondering whether I should forge it down a bit or file it down a little bit. It's fine on width, of course. It's a little bit, still a little bit chunky, but I might actually, good question. Bit of both, maybe. How about copping out and doing a little bit of both? So let's just go back to our.
Sunglasses.
Yeah.
They're in the glove box of that blue car you saw.
Ah, they are. You're right, Jeremy. I wonder whether I'll ring up the owner. Yeah, it was back in then, 83, Renault 5. You're absolutely right. I think it was TTL, the registration number. You didn't, I don't, but Jeremy wouldn't have bought that car, but not even in 1985. But you're right. You're right. I remember putting them in there and thinking that's a stupid place because I'm selling this car. It's going to go in the exchange in Mart, giving my age away. And I think that's also what happened to my slip joint pliers when I sold my last car. I think it was a bit of a panic to get rid of it. So I left them in the boot, which is a bit of a shame. Anyway. Right. So a combination of a bit of flattening, although it's very hard. And then we'll just file it on the inside as well there. So back to the cork block. Invice again, because we've already got that little flat on there now. The file will tend to go with it. Tighten that up.
Ian said maybe R.H. Davidson, the guy who stole that adjustable spanner, has got his sunglasses.
Yeah, maybe. I didn't actually steal the adjustable spanner, but there was when I lived in Banner Castle, next to the Specsavers, directly opposite was this really great, it's closed now, which is a shame, YMCA charity shop. And so I'd get home from work, or on a day I wasn't working, sort of see things and dash across. And once was this amazing stash of tools. And I did kind of seemed a bit unlikely that somebody had just donated it, but maybe it was one of those things where somebody had passed away and they just had a clear out or something. But I got some good stuff, including a whole lot of stuff that I'll never ever use. But I got some nice radio spares, stencils from the days, presumably before CAD drawing, for electrical circuits. I know nothing about electrical circuits, but they were such beautiful things. I thought I've got to have those. So anyway, so there's I bet everybody's Googling R.H. Davidson saying, Matthew's got your spanner. So there, we flattened out the foot a little bit. Just do a little bit more because it's nowhere near sort of diameter. Good. So that's going to go on there. Like that. Cool. Oh, if you can put in this frame of the camera, you can see. So actually, I suppose as we are soldering this bit on, really makes very, very little difference as to how long it is. I think we've got plenty meat on it left. Let's just have a measure up. We wanted 8 centimeters, didn't we? Oh, 80 mil sticking out. That might be a bit short for that. I didn't think of that, did I, when I solder it on? So I can't be too crazy with the amount that's on there on the foot. So, right, okay. Just tidy that up. And I'm just going to file the foot to an angle, sort of put a chisel shape on the back of it. Just make sure I file off the correct side. So that's the back. So that's the back. So that's the side we want to file there. There. Just file those marks out. Just put the pen directly on the back. Just find out which side I'm filing. So that's the back. And that's the front there. And then we just want to file a little chisel shape on there. Something like that. Good. Get rid of the pen. Solder with that on it. We'll just sneak on there. As I say, can't be too crazy with the amount that I solder on, otherwise I'm not going to have enough length on it. That'll be fine, be strong enough. So the next thing I've got to do, of course, is the bit I'm really, really dreading, and that's cleaning off this as an area to solder the new stuff on. So I'm just going to work at that with a scalpel a bit and just lift off a bit more of this solder. I'm just going to leave the solders. It looks thick, but I think it's because it's not. As you remember last week, we brushed it off. I think it's because the top of it is not very flat. It's been filed. Maybe have a little go at that, but let's just get it back on our block like that. It's really useful. The soft solder should lift off quite easily. As I say, I'm not bothered about leaving it on there. I'll just grip a bit of the three-dimensional stuff off. What I obviously have to do is to clear back to new material here where the new spring's going to solder on. I'm just going to make a little mark just so I can get an idea of where we're going to be. Just see it on the edge there. We need to do a bit more. I might have to employ different glasses. Really useful having that that foot on there. Let's have a look. Yeah, so it should just about be enough of the sort of oxidized layer there removed to get it to tack on. I will just check that it's wide enough, because as much as I don't want to take off too much material, I also don't want the rack spring to drop off. It'd be a bit embarrassing.
Jeremy says, won't it come off anyway when the new soldering happens?
Won't come off the dirt and all the tarnish and stuff.
Or the is it this, yeah, the 3D stuff that you were talking about? So
a little bit of it will, yeah, but I've scraped most of that off. I think it's been filed, And then this will obviously change color a bit, but let's just have a look. I think that's okay. Usual story. I'm faffing about a bit now. There's always that kind of anticipation of actually doing something before you do it. Good. We're nearly good to go. I'm just going to tidy up the that little bit of a chisel foot, tiny bit. Again, more procrastination, that's all it is. Possibly the finest thing on the planet. So I just want to tin this. Now, what I don't want to do, obviously, is to let the solder flow all over the end of it. I mean, it might do. It's a little bit of a tricky thing to do. So what I'm going to do is just to cut some tiny bits of solder up with a scalpel and then put one on and hope, keep fingers crossed, that it runs along that flat that I filed off and doesn't run around the sides. It might run around the sides. And if it does, maybe there's a resist I could paint on. I don't know much about that. I know silversmiths, I forgot what they use as a resist, but you can paint something on to try and prevent the solder from running. Right. Trusty spirit lamp, which I think needs a new wick. Which I have somewhere. Let's just, yeah, there's very little of this one left. Maybe it'll be enough if I just wet it. Wet your wick. Let me get a. Might be okay. It's such a tiny bit of material, it won't take much heating, will it? So here's our solder. Just going to use regular solder, kind of electrical solder stuff. Going to get a bit of steel wool just to clean that up. Don't forget when you finish with your steel wool to dispose of it in a metal container if you can, or put it in water because it can be a fire hazard, especially when it's got oil on it or something. So just cleaning up the solder, get the tarnish off it, a bit of steel wool. I'm just going to cut up with my scalpel. Gosh, it's amazing. This bench starts as a new sheet of paper. The tricky bit is going to be judging how much solder we need on there. Maybe just one of those tiny pieces will do it. Yeah. Let's try that. And I just get a bit of brass wire, if I can find something that's already been used for such a horrible job. It looks like an old pin. Monkey. All this is to do is to spread the solder. An interesting material, actually. That bit, it's got a look of a bit of bronze about it or something. Anyway, so lighter power. Torch. I'll have to look for the. So just using again the usual thing, regular. Oh, set fire to my hand. It's hot, that. You smell burning back hairs in the back of the hand. Anyway, regular soldering paste. Shouldn't laugh at setting fire to my own fingers. So without putting flux in my eye, I just want to get the flux really only where I need it. Sure how successful that will be, but anyway. And then let's get a bit of solder on there. Set fire to my hair now. Wouldn't be Thursday night, would it, if I didn't set fire to my hair? Right, here goes. So you see the solder. Maybe the camera's not going to focus. Oh. Oh no, it's still there. It's just moved around the side. Yeah. Good. So I presume it's run down onto the back a little bit, not too bad. So there we are. So if I do say so myself, a neat job of tinning that. Happy? Yep. And let's do the other bit. Exactly the same process on our shiny bit. This will be easier because the solder will not want to go where the dull metal is. But of course, it's also a slightly bigger bit of material, so it's going to take a bit more heating. Might need put 2 little bits on. Can, yeah. Again, I don't know if you can see that was a couple of tiny. What again? A couple of tiny little bits of solder there, just waiting to nicely flow along our joint. If they could be so accommodating. So again, we'll just heat gently. Again, I've banged on before many times. Just got to be a bit careful in this first bit because as the solder boils or melts, then what happens is it tends to push the little chunks of solder off. So there we go. Wow, great. So again, if I do say so myself, that was pretty neat. I only need 1 of those chunks on there. 2 was too many. Anyway, so a little bit more solder on. Flux, sorry, a little bit more flux on. And don't quite know how to tackle this, but I think I'll just try hold them together. I could use my tweezers. If I had my old tweezers or my soldering tweezers, life might be a bit easier. Right, different glasses. special soldering glasses. There we are. I'm just going to try and hold it. It's too wobbly. Different pliers as well. I knew there's a reason why I got 300 different pairs of pliers. Okay, so let's just, obviously the wire is going to heat up much quicker than the. There we go. So it's on. It's not a thing of great beauty yet, but we'll tidy it up next week. And hopefully that was cool enough not to anneal the brass, because of course brass anneals when you heat it up. So as much as it's an hour and a half anyway, as much as it's incredibly tempting just to bend that now and put it on the clock and see if it works, what I want to do is to get some hot soapy water on this and clear all the flux away before we do that, because it's all yucky. But I'll photograph it and put it on the Facebook page. But as you can see, it's not ultra beautiful at the moment, but it'll look better once the burnt flux is cleaned off, and we'll maybe just get a bit of a fiberglass pencil brush or something to tidy up the joint and maybe a little bit of this. So I think we're good to go. So there we are. We've got our new fishing rod type fly fishing. It's the Hardy of the rack spring world. Now where's the actual plate gone?
Derek said, is soft solder strong enough?
Yeah, it is for that. It's a good question, Derek. It's quite a big soft solder. Actually, is incredibly good. I'm a real fan of it for these kinds of repairs where you've got a large surface area. And of course, the thing is, if we were to hard solder it, we couldn't do it. Well, if you hard soldered it, you'd have to hammer harden this after, because it would anneal the material. So yeah, loads strong enough, he says, as it snaps off. But yeah, for this, no problem with soft soldering. If you've got both surfaces, as I incredibly, more by good luck than good management, did then, and there's a large surface area, which there is here. Remember, once this is bent round, the it's going to tend to pull the spring off in that direction. But yeah, I think it's fine. No problem there at all. The only time I worry about that is if it was the solder hadn't flowed properly or I hadn't tinned both sides. But yeah, no, I mean, yeah. Well, we'll see next week. It might break off. But otherwise, we would have had to make a more mechanical joint by sewing it or something, or by hard soldering it. But the problem with that is, hard soldering, nothing wrong, perfectly great for a lot of repairs. But it does mean that elevated temperature, and you could have done this. You'd have to get all the soft solder off to start with, but it would have meant that the whole thing was annealed, and then you'd have to harden it again after. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. It's yeah, as I said, it doesn't look quite as smart as it's going to do, and as long as it's long enough, I need to double check. I think it is going to be 2-inch there. Yeah, I think we've got plenty length in it. So that's our job for next week. I'll clean all the flux off by then. We'll pin it on, and again, like that, the good thing about doing it this way is like that winding ratchet click. We can just put the pin in and we can take the thing off, put it back on again as many times as we like, and then we'll bend it round, and then we'll put the rack hook on and sort of adjust the action of the of the spring. In the old days, I don't know where they've gone. I used to have some watch bow making pliers, and they had a series. They had a concave brass lined jaw with a series of grooves in them, and they were absolutely perfect for doing this job, for making watch bows or for adjusting watch bows. But they, I don't know, disappeared over the years, which is a bit of a shame. Nevertheless, we will find something to bend it round, and we'll be good to go. So I think that'll do for tonight. We've apart from setting fire to the hairs in the back of my hand, it was pretty successful. Let's prop that up there. Prop that up there even. So what did we learn tonight? A bit of soldering, which is always useful. Filing this spring. So when you get long case clocks and the springs are what's the word, parallel, you'll notice that they always tend to break off near the foot. That is not going to happen to our spring because it's nice and bendy along its length. And yeah, it's nice. It's going to be pinned on. So we'll get that finished next week, and then we'll move further up the train, either onto that center wheel pivot or onto the gathering pallet. And they're both really grim jobs, neither of which I want to do. So it's kind of might toss a coin to decide which of those. Maybe we should stick on the striking train and tackle the gathering pallet, because that is going to be silver soldered, and at least as an attempt to repair. If that doesn't work, then I'm gonna have to make a new one or something like that. So thanks very much as always. We'll see you on the Facebook group if you're into that. Might see you on Saturday night, certainly hope so. And yeah, otherwise have a great weekend. Okay, and thanks as always to Team Open Clock Club. We've been typing away like crazy and smiling quite a lot. So obviously you've been having a good old joke. So that ultimately is what this is about. It's not really about repairing clocks, as you know. It's about a community and about having a good time. So thanks a lot, and we'll see you again very soon. Bye. Bye, my mouse.